Oh, welcome to St. Elizabeth's. St. Elizabeth's was actually founded in our garden at 9 West Bank Road in Birkenhead in 1993 in a shed. Then we moved to 58 Shrewsbury Road, and then we had a little church that Vladika Mark blessed for the use of the parish, which we used until 2009, when the council gave us this building. And somehow we raised, there were 14 of us then, and we raised just over 42,000, and we moved into what was a derelict building, and it's now a beautiful and functioning Orthodox church.
With a few more than 14 parishioners.
Yes, a few
just a few now. There's
yes.
a lot of us.
There's probably 80 to 100 people that call this their regular place of worship now.
A lot more on feast days as well.
Yes, there's a lot more on feast days. So there's many people that come to the church, and it's a great blessing, because it was a derelict cemetery chapel until the council gave it to us. If you look around, there's very few seats, because it's the custom in Russian worship to stand and not to sit down. And you'll see that we put, like they have at St Edward's Brookwood, where I trained as a deacon, they have the icons on shelves on the walls around the nave, so that they can be taken down and venerated, and they can actually be venerated by the faithful.
When you refer to veneration, some of our viewers are likely not Orthodox and maybe not familiar with terms such as veneration. Would you be able to give a brief description?
We don't worship icons, we venerate them. And an icon both shares in and communicates the reality of the saint, or the episode in the life of our Saviour that it depicts. So the vanishing point of an icon is not actually beyond the icon, it's you. So when you venerate the icon, everything is coming towards you. So they do say it's the window into heaven, but in many ways it's heaven looking at you. It's heaven pouring into you that the icon depicts. So when we venerate it, we venerate the presence of heaven, the presence of the saints, the presence of the Saviour, the Mother of God, in the icon. But we don't worship the icon itself. We venerate what it represents and what it in fact communicates towards us. So
we've got some lovely icons at this parish, some of them with relics in them.
We do.
And many of them painted by our very own Father Justin.
Yes. So if you want to have a little look, then this is our parish icon here. And the parish icon has the church that we were actually aiming for, which is St Winifred's in Birkenhead, right in the centre. But unfortunately, the Church of England wanted £100,000 for that, and we didn't have £100,000, so we withdrew our interest from that. But for a long time, you don't know what I'm like, really. I'm not a very courageous man, and I was fearful of us taking on the challenge of a big building like this. And the r.o.c.o.r icon came to our little church in our house, and over 70 people stuffed into our house. And so some of the few parishioners that we regularly had said, "Oh, come on, Father Paul, we need to do something different to this." So I finally read the life of St. Irenachus, and St. Irenachus of Rostov. And St. Irenachus lived on the banks of the Don River. And what that says, that scroll, it says, because the Tsar was afraid to fight at some point, Irenachus went to him and said, "Dare, be courageous and God will bless you." And I read that life of St. Irenachus and I thought, okay, this is my job, I've got to do this. So that's why St. Irenachus is in the icon. He's saying, dare, and God will bless you. Be courageous, step out, do something. And these are St. Elizabeth, our patron saint, and then there's St. Winifred, and there is St. Werburgh, the patron saint of Cheshire. So we took these three women as our saints in some sense. And that's my house there. And that was the parish.
Yeah.
And these are three rivers. There's the River Don in Russia. And our founder member, Svetlana, she came from the Don region. So there's the Don, and there's the Mersey, and there's the Dee. And all three rivers have joined together, and St. Elizabeth's is in this. This was painted for us in Minsk.
By
our convent in Minsk, yeah. And then these are the three hierarchs. There's British hierarchs. Here's St. Chad, and St. Cuthbert, and St. Aidan. And this was painted by a Martyr in Lithuania. And she painted this for us and sent it to us. It's very beautiful. I love it. It's very beautiful. And then we've got St. Spiridon, we've got St. George with a relic of St. George, and we have this was sent to me. I opened an envelope, and the envelope said, "With thanksgiving for prayers," and it's an icon of St. Sergius of Radonezh and his parents, and this is the funeral of his parents, and St. Sergius. So this was sent. The postmark was Lithuania. I didn't know who sent it, but it was a Thanksgiving. They must have randomly just found a little parish and sent it. So, as a gift. So it's a lovely 19th century icon. There's St. Theophan the Recluse, and St. Seraphim the Sorrow. The Resurrection icon is painted by Aidan Hart, who is a very famous iconographer. And then our Christmas icon, Nativity icon, is St. Father Justin's. One of St. Lazarus with a relic of St. Lazarus. One of the myrrh-bearing women for our sisterhood. And there's St. Lebois, painted icon. This is St. Werburgh, patron icon of St. Werburgh. And these are the geese. This is her symbol. And here's we have extraordinary things here. Everybody in the empire received a silk picture of the Tsar at his coronation. And this is one of them. So
there's a lot of history in this.
There is a lot of history in this.
You're asking me to go through that in a minute.
So there's another extraordinary bit of history that just everybody in Russia received a silk picture of the Tsar, and there's one. So then up here is a beautiful icon, St. Mary of Egypt, really beautiful icon, St. Mary of Egypt. And then St. Nicholas, and the Saviour and the Mother of God. And these we use normally at weddings. So there's a wedding icons that we use. They're nice and pretty. There's St. Mary and St. Martha, with relics of St. Mary and St. Martha within it. And this is, these are the foundation of Solovki. And this belonged to Mariana. So St. Herman and I'm not sure which of the three founders of r.o.c.o.r. This is one of those old icons that somebody would have gone to in the 19th century. Gone to r.o.c.o.R. and they'd have bought a painted icon. And there you'll see there's an icon of the Kazan icon of the Mother of God, and it's just tin. And these would have been 19th century, sort of pilgrims would have brought back from somewhere in Russia and venerated and kept holy. So we have lots of these kind of things.
Yeah.
Here's another one, and Holy Face. This is the icon of St. Nicholas that was the from our parish in Bradford. So that was its altar feast icon. And then we've just had these stained glass windows done. From Minsk.
Yeah.
And they painted these. So it's partly painted, partly stained glass.
Yes, really beautiful.
And they're very beautiful.
Very
lovely.
indeed.
So lots of icons. This is r.o.c.o.r. and Liviu gave us. This is the Romanians paint on the reverse of glass. So it's a particular type of icon that Romanians have. Because we've got embroideries of St. Elizabeth in. This is pearlware. This is Ukraine. And somebody gave us this lovely embroidered icon of St. Elizabeth, which we can carry on our banner. Then you've got a choir school, made by Sir Bradislav. And then you've got our shrine of St. Elizabeth. We had a Russian family, they're currently living in Armenia, and they donated that icon because their church in Moscow, before they emigrated to the UK, was St. Elizabeth. And their parish priest said, take this and give it to wherever you settle. So they brought this on their second Sunday when they came. And when they come, they have 5 children. So they're a whole congregation in a car. Matthew and Victoria and the children. And then this is another one of these embroidered icons, and this is from Ukraine, and the Simpson family donated this, and then Aidan donated this, and this is made with precious stones, ground special stones, stones, and in it there's this is a relic. It is part of the original coffin of St. Elizabeth in there, which was raised from the mine shaft. And so you've got a relic there, and that's what that says in Russian there. Then we've got relics of St. Elizabeth and St. Barbara, which Vladika Mark brought us from the Holy Land. There should be a relic of St. Joachim and St. Anna. And there's a relic of the True Cross here. And also, this is on loan from Ireland. This relics of St. Seraphim and Sarov and St. Andrei Rublev, St. Germanus of Solovki, all sorts of Russian saints, which somehow we have on loan. And that was above the priest's bed in Bradford when I cleared the house, and it has some of the original coffin of St. John of Kronstadt. So there's all sorts of things here.
Very blessed.
So there's that little lot. That icon was given to us by Our Lady Valentina, who doesn't worship here. She worships at the cathedral in London. But she gave that particularly to us because our last resident bishop here, before Bishop Irenae, was Bishop Constantine. And he called her Auntie Val. And there's a letter in his writing on the back in Russian. And when his body was raised to be buried, he was incorrupt. So Bishop Constantine is a remarkable figure. And there's a letter of his on the back of there, So you'll always see me sense that. I always sense that 3 times, and that's especially for the handmaiden of God, Valentine. Always. And then these are just beautiful icons that we have. These were St. Elizabeth's favourites, these two. This is the Valam icon of the face of the not made with hands, and then the Mother of God, like the r.o.c.o.r icon, where she is, the Saviour is effectively reigning from her womb. So it's called a Mother of God of the Sign.
It's beautiful.
And those were St. John of Kronstadt's favourite ones. So we have that. Then you're up onto the iconostas. So this belonged to the Russian embassy in Welbeck Street in London, and so did the other candle stand on the other side, and so did those 2 candle stands on the other side. So they come from the old Russian embassy. This belonged to Mariana. Mariana was a lovely member of our congregation, and it was the only thing she managed to smuggle out of Yugoslavia after the war. And it was the only thing that she managed to take with her. So it was very precious to her, and when she died, she left it to us in her will. So that was dear Mariana's. And this will be a kissing icon from the old Russian embassy, which we had it restored in Minsk. It's very beautiful. The Tsar would have kissed this.
Is it not true that the Tsar would have used these candle
The Tsar
holders
would
as well
have used these
when they
candle
were in
holders
London?
when they were in
and
London, yeah.
Made state
Yeah,
visits.
yeah. And then you have the iconostas. Oh, well, we've got the Calvary, which came from Bradford. We had a parish in Bradford until 1999, and it was left behind soldiers from the Free Russian and Belarusian and Ukrainian armies after the war. And they were in camps for displaced persons, and those their officers were sent back to Russia after the Yalta Agreement between Stalin, Churchill and Roosevelt, but the non-commissioned officers and the ordinary soldiers were allowed to stay in Britain, and they were the basis of the non-commissioned officers, and their families were the basis of our then 2 parishes, or 3, in Nottingham, Bradford and in Manchester. We closed the parish in Bradford in 1999, and most of the holy things, including the vessels, came here. So we have a number of things from Bradford here. In fact, the bigger of the candles, of the 5 processional candles, that bigger one is Bradford's. So,
there's a lot of history in this parish.
There is.
I believe that these specific icons to the
these
right
icons, these were painted in the style of these in Minsk. And Father Justin painted these in the style of these and incorporated a relic of St. John Chrysostom and St. Basil, which we were gifted. But the icons themselves come from the old London Podvoria, and they were painted between 1926 and 1928 in Paris, and then brought over for our bishop's first residence in London, in Baron's Court, All Saints Baron's Court. And if you'll, I'll show you a picture of what they used to look like. And that was them with then, that was then Archimandrite Vitali, who became eventually Metropolitan Vitali. So that's 1949. And there are our icons, look, behind them. So that's at the London Podvoria, 1949.
It's the same as the icon.
And the same as the icons here, yeah. And so these icons were painted by Princess Lvov. Princess Lvov eventually ended up as our abbess in Lesna convent in France. And she's a famous iconographer. She trained in the Royal School of Art, where they revived this style from 1905 this style is called Old Moscow style, and she was one of the people that revived this style, got away from sort of slightly sort of almost pre-Raphaelite paintings and brought back a more traditional style to Russian iconography at that period. And these are very beautiful. An amazing gift from our cathedral in London.
We've had a lot of gifts. A minute ago, you referred to the iconostasy. Could you just explain for people who maybe aren't as familiar with Orthodoxy, what is it and what is the purpose of the iconostasy?
It means a stand for icons or images. If you look in the history of the Church, somebody like St. Theodore of Mopsuestia had an embroidered curtain, which he moved across. Mm-hmm. But slowly, by around about the 5th to 6th century, a screen began to be set up. Previous to that, an embroidered curtain might have been used. St. Diodore of Tarsus became became an Archbishop of Canterbury, who came from the East, and he was surprised not to find an embroidered curtain and introduced it into Canterbury when he arrived as Archbishop of Canterbury. So this, and if you go to the Oriental Orthodox churches, they don't have iconostas, but they do have the embroidered curtain. Mm-hmm. So obviously the embroidered curtain and the sort of screen between the lay people and the clergy has been there for a very long time. But of course it's developed. I mean, you see it in Russia, you will see 50 or 60 foot iconostas, you know, they just go on and on and on right up. Whereas ours is a little bit more restrained. It is the gateway between earth and heaven, eternity and time, human and divine. And so when the Saviour says, "I am the door," well, in some sense, the door represents Christ, it represents revelation, it represents represents the entry to the tomb, it represents lots of different things at different times. It's got lots of layers of meaning. Of course, it's got a curtain, and then the veil of the temple was rent in twain, etc., etc. And I'm saying goodbye to Joseph.
Sorry, am I interrupting you?
Not at all, not at all.
No, sorry.
God bless you.
And you know when a service is going on or whether it isn't, as to whether this lamp is down or whether it's up. If it's up, then there's a service going on. And then I'll just go and I'll open the curtain. And then you can have a little look inside. You'll see it is all covered up. You've both served in church, so you know what is beyond. On the holy table, you have the 7-branch candle, and that particular one was from the London Podvoria. And then always on the holy table, you have a gospel book which presides on the holy table, and you have the antimins, this is called the Elliott, which is, and then inside is the antimins, and the antimins is my permission to serve. And our altars are normally freestanding and are normally square, and this is a perfect meter cube, this one. And then there's an altar of prothesis on the other side, preparation means, and the silver vessels are from the old London Podvoria. So these have been used by some amazing members of the Church abroad, including St. John of Shanghai would have served from these vessels. So it's quite amazing that such things. You received Holy Communion from these vessels today. So it's a great blessing that we have such things
Truly.
in our church.
Definitely is.
So anyway, there's that. We've got lots of beautiful vestments in our church, mainly from Minsk, a few from Voronezh, but most of them are from Minsk. So there you are.
Well, thank you very much for that, Father.
That's a little guide. I'll
yeah.
just shut this up again. I'm not disappearing forever.
Thank you very much for your time. We could take a break now.
Yes.
We'll say goodbye to everyone, and we'll be back with the second part with where I'm going to interview Father Paul here and ask him a few questions about Orthodoxy and the Church abroad and the Church in Britain.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
God bless you. Bye-bye.